was trying my wait time and it didn't work, so next step was proximity, right? You move towards the folks who are talking. Eagle Valley High School. Hey you guys, first thing I want to do is welcome you to Eagle Valley High School. I'm Phil Coleman, superintendent, and I want to thank Greg Doan and his staff for allowing us to use your school today. Thank you. There's a couple of reasons why we wanted to use Eagle Valley. There's been a lot of development down here, and I don't know how long it's been since you've seen this campus, but the H2 building out here, health and the hospitality building, the new addition to the back, renovations to the rest of the building, it's beautiful. So we wanted you to see what your tax dollars have been paying for. And then Battle Mountain, who normally hosts this event, also wanted me to say thank you. Because they're not hosting. All right, guys, well, welcome to the new school year. Let me see if I can get this in here. Yeah, oh, and in terms of the new facility, I can tell you the hand dryers work in the bathroom. I spent about 10 minutes in there this morning because I spilled coffee all over myself when I came in. So I had to wash my jacket and then stand under the hand dryer, so those are working. Yeah, pretty special. That's exactly what I needed today. All right, so let's get started. First thing I want to do is figure out who's in the room. This should be all Evo County employees. So if you work in early childhood or in elementary school, let me hear you. Where are you? Elementary school. That's pretty loud. Middle school, where the middle school people at? Well done for such few grades. You're remarkably loud. High school, where the high school people at? Very good. Notice there did you guys do that on purpose or in the back? Well done. Where are district personnel, facilities, transportation, nutrition, district office? Where you at? Peppered throughout the building. Excellent. Well, welcome, you guys. I'm glad you're here. We've got several things to be excited about this year, and I want to review some of those because I like to start out with some things to be grateful for. For the first time ever in Colorado, we have full day free kindergarten for everybody. That's a pretty big deal. It's a big deal. I want to thank Governor Polis for his effort in leading that initiative and for our team for executing it. But that's going to have a profound impact both financially and academically for a lot of families and young people in our community. We also have just wrapped up over $150 million in facility improvements that have taken 3 years. It's resulted in new buildings, it's resulted in renovations, new wings, and I need to thank Sandy Muchler. Sandy, thank you to your team, facilities team. Thank you to Todd Sheehan and the technology team. They had to install hundreds of TVs and wireless drops. Thank you to you guys, and mostly the voters, and that's you guys too. You guys helped pass that bond, so thank you to yourselves. You got some beautiful facilities. For the first time in my 16-year history in the district, we have a transparent salary schedule for teachers. That took a lot of work. I want to offer my thanks to the Eagle County Education Association for their hard work in advocating for that and making that possible through negotiations. So ECEA. And the last thing I'm grateful about is we have the leanest district office that we have had in years. And what that means is not that all the district office people were on a diet this summer and we all got skinny. What it means is we have the least amount of people so that we're directing the most dollars and the most resources to teachers in classrooms. So what can we look forward to in 1920? What's on the agenda? What's on the radar? We've got a renewed vision with clear district-wide alignment and realistic goals. We've also got 100% returning leadership in principal positions, department heads, and superintendents. That may not sound like a big deal, but when you have 100% returning leadership, That provides stability, provides confidence, and the surety that you can enter into your classroom and start the school year on stable ground. So I'm grateful for that. And the other thing I think we need to recognize is just this community. We have an incredibly supportive group of nonprofits that support you and support your students. And I could stand up here and list them all, and it would take me 10 minutes. But you know who the big hitters are that provide after-school programming and extracurricular activities. What our kids have access to in this community through those nonprofits is not common. It's extraordinary, and we need to be grateful to those nonprofits. Some of them are here today, so I want to say thank you to them and recognize that we have that as a support in our community. And the last thing to look forward to is that this school year does not extend into the middle of June. Wow, was that a long school year and a short summer. I hope you guys filled your summer with fun, that you filled up your buckets so that we can charge into this year strong. So I want to pause for a minute on my notes and take a moment to introduce Kate Cocciarella. Kate is our Board of Education President. She served on our board for 10 years. This is a voluntary position, mind you, voluntary. And that means 2 meetings a month plus hundreds of pages of notes to read before every meeting. It's a huge commitment. And to come to board meetings in Eagle or Gypsum when you live in Eastvale is no easy trek. So Kate represents the east end of the valley in Vail, and one of the things I appreciate about her leadership, you may have seen some of her comments in the Vail Daily. Occasionally she's a contributor. And in her comments, it's very clear that she values a multicultural society. And her leadership on the board clearly represents that. And it inspires me and it inspires our organization. So I appreciate her for that and want to give her a few moments to speak with you. So Kate, come on up.
Bienvenidos a todos y muy buenos días. Qué excelente estar aquí en Eagle Valley High School esta mañana. Welcome to you all. Very good morning. It's really excellent to be here in Eagle Valley High School this morning. Siempre es un honor estar frente a ustedes como representante de la Junta Directiva de Educación, quienes algunos miembros están aquí frente, las filas de frente. It's always an honor to be here in front of you as a representative of the Board of Education, and some of our members are here today in the front row. De parte de la Junta, quiero expresar nuestra profunda y sincera gratitud por el alma, vida y corazón que ustedes entregan a nuestros y nuestras estudiantes cada día. On behalf of the board, I want to express our profound and sincere gratitude for the heart and soul that you put into our students each and every day. Queremos que sepan que nos damos cuenta de sus esfuerzos y les agradecemos mucho por eso. We want you to know that we take notice of your efforts, and we thank you very much for them. Todos ustedes me impresionan mucho. All of you impress me very much. Veo compañeros pensando colectivamente, ayudándose y apoyándose unas a otras. Veo entusiasmo y dedicación en su colaboración. I see colleagues thinking collectively, helping each other, supporting each other. I see enthusiasm and dedication in your collaboration. Siento su deseo de mejorar su arte día con día. Siempre quieren hacer más, aprender más, enseñar mejor. I feel your desire to improve your craft every day. You always want to do more, learn more, teach better. Teach better. Escucho conversaciones en las que me demuestran su enfoque y profesionalismo. Su pasión por el trabajo es palpable. I hear conversations that show me your focus and professionalism. Your passion for the job is palpable. Nuestra misión es preparar cada uno de nuestros y nuestras estudiantes para que al graduarse tengan las habilidades globales necesarias. Right? Our vision is to prepare each one of our students to be global-ready graduates. Nuestra misión es fomentar mentes creativas y activas, compasión por los demás, entusiasmo por el aprendizaje para el resto de la vida, y el valor por actuar por sus sueños. Our mission is to teach the children of Eagle County to have creative and active minds, compassion for others, enthusiasm for lifelong learning, and the courage to act on their dreams. Esas metas no son fáciles de lograr. El mundo para que les preparamos está cambiando día a día. These goals are not easy to achieve. The world for which we're preparing our students is changing every day. Pero confío en ustedes. Tenemos un equipo muy especial aquí en Condado Eagle. But I have confidence in you all. We have a very special team here in Eagle County. Si trabajamos juntos, si nos escuchamos unas a otras, si nos preocupamos unos por otras, si tratamos de entender la perspectiva de los demás, tendremos éxito. Tengo confianza en ustedes. If we work together, if we listen to one another, if we take care of one another, if we try to understand the other perspective, we will succeed. I have confidence in you all. También tengo confianza en nuestro líder nuevo, quien no es realmente nuevo. Él empezó su carrera aquí en Condado Eagle hace 16 años como voluntario. Él ha sido maestro y director. Tiene experiencia en administración al nivel de distrito. Él ha demostrado la habilidad de aprender y evolucionar con cada una de sus funciones sucesivas. I also have confidence in our new leader, who's not really new. Right? He began his career here in Eagle County 16 years ago as a volunteer. He's been a teacher and a principal. He's got experience in the district office. He has shown the ability to learn and evolve with each of his successive roles. Me da gran placer presentarles. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you once again, Mr. Phil Plum.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it. Last time I messed with this, that happened. So, do a real gentle. There we go. All right, thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. Last spring, I made a point to visit all your schools, and I spoke with scores of staff members, and I collected hundreds of comments. Your feedback was instrumental. Some of it was encouraging and positive, and some of it was not, but we needed to hear it. So with that feedback, we hope to come back this year with clarity, with aligned goals and clear vision. We revised the strategic plan. I would call this an evolution of the previous plan. I don't want it to be a revolution in a new plan. That old plan was good, it was comprehensive, but in a lot of ways it was hard to follow. So we've got an evolved strategic plan. There were some structural changes in that plan, but I don't want to get into those today. The important point to share with you today are the 3 priorities in the new plan. And I use the word priorities. That's new in our strategic plan. We have not prioritized elements, but this year we have. We've picked out 3 areas that we think we need to focus on as a district, and I want to share those with you as part of my goal to provide clear vision. I'm going to start with equity. Equity as the #1 goal. You may have heard me mention before that we have to Maslow before we bloom. That's an homage to the educational psychology theories of Abraham Maslow and Benjamin Bloom. And I'm going to give you a little history on those guys, since at heart, I'm a history teacher, so I get to kind of go back and be my history teacher self for a moment. Abraham Maslow developed what he called a hierarchy of needs. In his hierarchy, he had a base level that said that humans need to be secure, they need to be fed, they need to be sheltered. And once you have those pieces in place, then a human can move on to creating relationships, friendships, and belonging. And after those levels are established, then a human can start to move on and really focus on self-actualization or greatness, how to make themselves the best they can be. But they can't do that unless all those other layers are in place first. So that's Abraham Maslow. Let's now talk about Benjamin Bloom. I should have asked if anybody knew his first name, extra credit. Benjamin Bloom. So there's what Benny says. Ben created what's called the taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy. And when I first heard that in teacher college, I'm like, this guy, he was a taxidermy guy? I don't get it. What is a taxonomy? And then I realized it's just a way to classify. So what Bloom did is he classified levels of thinking. At the base level of thinking are memorization, learning facts, regurgitating facts. Pretty simple. At the next highest level, you move up to application and analysis. You start to use those ideas and those facts. And ultimately, in his highest level, and this is the level that we were always told in teacher college to strive for in our lessons, is evaluation and creation. How to build something new and exciting out of these facts and theories. Now, Maslow and Bloom never hung out. Okay, they never Google grouped and traded ideas. So why do I blend these two guys together? I bring them together because I think that the juxtaposition of these two best explains my idea about hearts and minds. We have to say that we Maslow before we Bloom, because we have to make sure that basic needs of security and respect and belonging are in place before we can ever concern ourselves with the levels of thinking. I place equity as the priority because it serves as the foundation. I think that this perspective is more relevant today than it has ever been. And I know this probably sounds trite because I remember my own parents telling me that, oh, your generation with your television and with your rock and roll and your MTV, and they thought that I was going to be a total failure, live in a van down by the river. But I do think that there's a fundamental shift happening in our society that we need to be aware of. We talk a lot about being connected, and we refer to Wi-Fi, right? If you don't have Wi-Fi, we're going to lose our minds. We talk about social media, but I think what we've observed in our classrooms are students that are increasingly disconnected from healthy emotional interactions, who are lonely, fearful, and craving genuine human interaction. Today's students have grown up in a society where bullying can occur with instant and anonymous ferocity. Our students are growing up in a world where vicious tweets are commonplace, and social media has been politicized and weaponized. Their most vulnerable years are stained with insults and images that erode confidence and true social connection. We have to remember that every student in our schools today was born after Columbine. They've grown up practicing active shooter drills. They're the first lockdown generation. Last year, they witnessed 300,000 students in the Denver metro area get a day off from school for a possible school shooter. Not a snow day, a school shooter day. Mass shootings now come in pairs, and ICE raids are real. This environment breeds fear. It's hard to find any previous generation that's had to face such obstacles. And fear is a primal response, and that response comes with a host of psychological and physiological effects. Have you ever had to comfort a scared student during a lockdown drill? Have you ever had to choke back tears during a lockdown drill? Because your own kid was also in school somewhere? Fear and trauma have changed the culture of school, and we can't take that lightly. Not for our students, and not for us. Now, it's important. More important than ever that we accept our role and the role of schools in creating a more civil, respectful, and compassionate society. We have the ability, and I dare say we have the responsibility, to be more inclusive and more respectful in our classrooms and our schools. We have a lot to overcome, but we're the ones to make the difference. I taught high school civics and history for 8 years. I know how it feels to be passionate about my content. I wanted so badly for my kids to get excited about a really cool gerrymander. I wanted them to get pumped up about a compelling dissenting opinion from a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But it didn't always happen. Sometimes I had to accept that my students really needed a secure environment where they felt safe and respected. They needed somebody to treat them with kindness and show them that I had faith in their ability. It was a compassionate principal, actually, who spoke to me when I was frustrated at one point. I couldn't understand why the kids weren't getting really excited about a primary source exercise that I had spent all week planning. I was super pumped about this. No, you can take it or leave it. And the principal said to me, Phil, if the content that you're presenting isn't connecting with the kids, it's probably because you haven't taken the time to connect with the kids. He said, you don't teach history and civics, you teach kids. So get to know your kids, and when they know you, and they know that you care about them, they'll start to care about what you're doing. At first I was like, I couldn't let go of the primary source documents that I had struggled to find, but I took the time. I went back and just had some conversations with the kids and got to know them, and he was right, and that's been a powerful influence that has guided my career. So our focus on equity, ensuring that Maslow's hierarchy of needs nurtures the hearts of our students, is essential before we can start to inspire their minds. And that leads me to the second priority of the plan, systems of support. I believe that equity and systems of support are symbiotic. We can't do one without the other. The focus on equity means that we're adopting a new lens. We're adopting a new reality through which we view everything that we do. Does every task, every course offering, every assembly, every letter home, every field trip, every consequence help or harm a student's sense of belonging? This has to be a constant, vigilant awareness. And here's the connection. With that awareness comes empathy and patience. And with that empathy and patience, we're able to apply the systems of support. We can recognize the real reason why a student is falling behind, instead of making some assumption that's outside of the equity lens. I believe that every student is capable of learning, and I believe that every student deserves a shot at excellence. So the system of support, it's really very simple. It's just a matter of identifying low achievement, identify the root cause, and provide immediate support. That's all it is. And I've been doing this long enough to get lost in the acronyms, to get frustrated with RTI is response to instruction. Oh, wait. No, it's response to intervention. Wait, sorry, I just break your chimes. They're okay. But I'm going to set them down here. So they're okay. They're okay. They're really cool chimes. So yeah, or what? I was getting frustrated with RTI. Okay, so response to instruction, and then like the next year it was response to intervention, or did I get that backwards? Backwards. And then the next year it was MTSS. So after like 3 years of changing it on me, I'm checked out. I mean, come on, man. Like at least decide a name, and then I can learn it. But I want to walk away from all that for a minute. Let's put the acronym frustration aside and just recognize it's just a system of support. That's all we're trying to do, is develop a system of supports. And I know that your schools have these in place. I've seen them in action. But I also know that they're at very different levels of effectiveness, and everybody does it differently. So what we're trying to do with this priority in the district is make a system. That's a capital S, a system of supports that's more responsive, more consistent, and improves success for kids across the district. If you get a chance to look at that strategic plan, you're going to see the systems of support in there 2 times. It's so important that we've listed it twice. The first time that you'll see it is for teachers to use that system in their classroom, to recognize when kids need help, find the root cause, and apply the solution. The second place that you'll see that in the strategic plan is for us, for the district leadership team, because teachers can't implement a consistent, effective system if it doesn't exist. So we're going to try to work on building that. We're going to try to make that easy for you. Making that a priority only works if we work together. So that's our goal. The third and final priority that I want to review today is school improvement plans. They've never been specifically mentioned in the strategic plan. I don't understand how, as a district, we expected schools to improve when your own plans were not valued in the driving document. But they are now. Not only are they mentioned in the plan, but they're set as a priority. We understand that individual school plans are powerful, and they're specific to the needs of your students and specific to the skill set of your staff. So what you're going to find is that the district office this year is going to try to customize our support to your needs. We'll be promoting equity, we'll be promoting systems of support, but we're also going to study your plans. We're going to understand what the strengths are of your school, what your needs are, and try to make sure that we come to you without an agenda. We come to you to address the needs that you've identified as a school. What we're trying to do in Eagle County Schools is create a district where schools can be proud of their unique character. We're trying to create a district where all employees feel valued and respected. We're trying to demonstrate that the district office can model a growth mindset and be the first to change. We're trying to create a work environment where people feel safe to voice opinions and seek support without judgment. To do this, I'm going to need to ask you for three things. I need your help this year. I need you to do three things. The first thing is, I need you to be open to our change as district leadership. I need you to give us a chance to show a new model of responsive leadership and service-oriented district support. The second thing I need you to do is take care of each other. We have hard jobs. They're emotionally taxing and physically taxing. So I need you to model kindness, respect, and collaboration for your peers. And when your students see that and your colleagues see that, it becomes a more caring place to work. And the last thing I need you to do is take care of yourself. Be mindful of your own health, physically and emotionally. Take time for yourself if you need it, and feed your soul. Enjoy the beauty and the opportunity that surrounds us. We pay quite a tax to live here, so you might as well take advantage of it. You can't take care of your job if you aren't first taking care of yourself. If we do this, we can make Eagle County Schools a district where students are excited to go to school, where parents are proud to send their kids, and where we wake up every morning excited to do this challenging and rewarding work. Thank you for all you do for our kids. Up next, I'd like to introduce Tia Luck. Many of you know Tia from her work helping train for student engagement. She's been a strong proponent for English language learners. And this year, Tia has taken over as equity coordinator to help guide us through the equity process. I have to preface by saying Tia is not a big fan of speaking in front of groups. This is a group. So be kind, be gracious. She'll kill this, but be patient. Tia, you got this. Tia, welcome, come to stage.
All right, hi. Thanks, Bill, and I want to have everybody look to the back and give a big thank you to Eric and Edgar, who are simultaneously Them and their team have been working tirelessly for weeks on getting documents and speeches translated ready for us all today, so thank you. We started equity work over the summer, where we had representatives from every school and every department come together to begin their path of this work. We built tone and trust as teams through exploring personal culture. We also started an ongoing collaboration with our community partners so that we can do this work county-wide with many of our nonprofit partners and Eagle County government. Today, we're demonstrating that equity is the priority by spending the whole day as a district starting this work. So set of values, beliefs, norms, and achievements. And each of our unique cultures determines our worldview, how we interact with people, how we teach, and how we learn. Before we can be culturally responsive, we need to understand our own culture, and we all have culture. And we need to understand how culture is related to greater social inequities. We're all subject to overwhelming messages from society about who should be viewed as the norm. We're conditioned to accept white, native English-speaking, able-bodied, heterosexual people as making up the dominant culture. Similarly, students perceived as smart have a certain set of skills and behavior, many of which are representative of that dominant culture. These societal norms hold our students back, and frankly, they hold all of us back. They create environments with high instances of bullying, mental health needs, and great disparities in access, opportunity, and success. So what if? What if we at Eagle County Schools work together to dismantle privilege, power, and difference through courageous leadership? What if it wasn't seen as a deficit when a student wasn't proficient in English yet, rather an asset that they're becoming bilingual or trilingual in many cases? What if all students believe that they are smart, that they are good creative writers, and that they are math magicians? We can create a school district and a community where students and adults feel safe to be themselves and thrive, regardless of race, gender, economic status, gender identity, sexual orientation, language background, exceptional needs, or any other differences. So moving forward, I ask you to truly engage in this process. Not because I want you to, not because the district is asking you to, but because you know in your heart it's the right work. Our students and their families need to feel a sense of belonging at school before they can engage in the learning they need to be successful. And we all deserve to work in environments where everyone strives to understand and respect each other across our differences. We, everyone in this room, work together to make up our system. We are Eagle County Schools. And we need to model and practice inclusion and equity at every level. We're all in this together as learners. We are all learning throughout. Every person, school, and department is on their own path of evolving cultural competence, deepening their understanding of culturally responsive practices, and building a culture of inclusion, equity, and excellence. Every one of our voices is valuable, and every one of us can be an advocate. Our focus this year will be on building the foundation, creating environments with high levels of tone and trust through exploring our own culture and understanding the cultures of others. Gloria Ladson-Billings says, a hallmark of a culturally responsive professional is someone who understands that we're operating in a fundamentally inequitable system. They take it as a given, and it's our role to not merely help kids fit into an unfair system, but to rather give them the skills, the knowledge, and the dispositions to change the inequity. We have incredible professionals in Eagle County Schools. I've been in all your schools, and I've been in so many of your classrooms, and I've seen your commitment and passion. And for all of us, gaining a deeper understanding of the social inequities surrounding us that built our system, and working together to change it, we can ensure that we are truly preparing all students for success. We're in the beginning of a long-term, sustained effort. This is not going away, and we're going to keep this superintendent for a while. To ensure our efforts gain traction. We can't just talk about this once a month in PLC. Equity is something that we need to practice every day. We need to be reflective every day. How are our actions helping or hindering our students and the people around us? Equity is the connective tissue between the best practices we're already using, like AVID, SIOP, project-based learning, and PBIS. And we'll know our efforts are successful when more students feel valued at school, when more adults are able to have honest and tough conversations, when we see a reduction in disparities, and not just in CMAS and SAT, but in proportionality of discipline referrals, in instances of bullying, in access to higher level courses, just to name a few. Your feedback in the What Do We Value survey demonstrated a demand for more support in equity and culturally responsive teaching. Therefore, the deep equity approach was chosen by school and district leaders to provide us with research-based methods and resources. Deep equity and the district guidance is here to support you, but you and our students are the real drivers of this work. Next, we'll view a video from Gary Howard, the founder of Deep Equity. He has over 40 years of experience in civil rights, social justice, equity, education, and diversity. He'll introduce us to some key concepts of our work moving forward. Then we get to spend an hour with Benji Howard and Wade Antonio Paulo. They are artists inspiring students around the country to be agents for change. The Youth Equity Stewardship brings student voice to the forefront to inform decision-making alongside teachers and leaders. We're so grateful to have them here today and to experience their message in a way similar to how our students will. So thank you so much, Benji and Wade, and now we'll hear from Gary Howard.
Hello, and welcome to this professional development process on cultural competence and culturally responsive teaching. And when I say those words, I want to say right at the beginning that by doing this professional development on those topics, cultural competence, culturally responsive teaching, I'm not assuming that you aren't culturally competent or culturally responsive in your work. I think if we look at the educational workforce across this country, the teachers are in the 90th percentile in terms of cultural competence. We deal with differences all the time. The differences that students bring to us in terms of race, class, culture, language, religion, gender, sexual orientation, family background, coming to our schools, our classrooms every day. So I think that teachers are already working their hearts out in terms of connecting with kids across differences. But we know from our data, because we look at our outcome data across the country, not just your school district, but the many that I work with across the country, our data shows us that we're having differential and disparate outcomes related to many of those same differences. In terms of dropout rates, discipline referral rates, achievement scores, college attendance, student engagement, race and economics often get in the way, as well as language differences and certainly special needs in terms of producing outcomes that are more equitably distributed across our student population. So this is probably the biggest challenge that we face in American public education and in independent schools as well across the country. How do we do a better job with more kids across more differences, more of the time, without asking them to give up who they are? We want to keep that rich diversity, that kind of specialness, that craziness, that mix that kids bring to us in the classrooms. We want to keep it alive, but we also want to be able to eliminate those disparities in terms of our outcomes. And I think that school reform, which in many ways school reform process over the last 2 decades has been about trying to reduce disparities in public education, particularly related to race and economics and special needs. But I think we started from the wrong end of the spectrum when we created the school change processes. If you look at No Child Left Behind back in the early 2001, 2002, then Race to the Top, and whatever next reiteration of this is going to come along, too much have been focused and designed by folks at the political and business level, think tanks, foundations. In many cases, school reform has been designed by people who spend no time really in your classrooms or mine, who haven't taught a day in your classrooms. or mine. So from a teacher point of view, which this professional development process is coming from, we want to turn that process on its head. We want to really look at change from the bottom up. Real kids, real teachers, real administrators, real support staff, real schools in real time. And how does change happen in our school? And I want to say that this process is based on profound respect for the work that you already do. So the work that we're asking you to do is about good people doing hard work, not about bad people messing up. Because I also feel that too much of the school reform rhetoric has been anti-teacher and also anti-public education. And that has not helped the process. In many ways, I think that's taken some of the energy out of the changes that we need to take place. So in this process, this professional development process, which I call working together for inclusion, equity, and excellence, we're going to be starting from that, I think, authentic end of the spectrum, which is you, your kids, real time. Now, the process that we're going to be dealing with is going to be dealing with a set of concepts that are different from the old diversity training or multicultural workshop kind of focus. I think in many ways that what I call the old language of diversity and multiculturalism has kind of worn out in schools. Part of that is because many of us have been to several diversity training workshops and didn't come away feeling good about the workshop, in some cases about ourselves. I think too much of the past approach has been around shame and blame, looking at victimhood and shame and blame, and people coming out feeling either angry, guilty, or cynical about the process. And I meet educators all over the country who've had enough of diversity training. When we invite people to diversity training, they don't necessarily come with their arms and minds open. So we're going to shift the language in this context, in this work that we're going to be doing, and kind of create a new way of arriving at these issues that you're working on every day in your classrooms. And if you look at the first handout that you have, which is about those key concepts related to inclusion, equity, and excellence, and these are the words, I think, that make more sense to me, because it's not really an issue of whether we're diverse in our schools. Our schools are diverse. And some of you may be working in schools that are highly racially, culturally, economically diverse. Some of you may be working in schools that are not so diverse or maybe growing in diversity. But we're all dealing with difference all the time in our classrooms. And these are the key words that I think can help drive that process. So let's look at that word inclusion. Inclusion means students and employees, because this is about the adults in the school as well as the kids. Students and adults feel welcomed, seen, respected, understood, cared for, and safe. And this is something we want for every student across all grade levels and every employee in our school district. It's a hard goal to get to, but it's a lot connected to the anti-bullying work that you're doing in your school. It's connected to your school climate work. It's when folks feel that they can show up in the building and be who they are. Now we move to the equity term. And the equity term is about the outcomes, those that we measure, in many cases those that we don't measure. But it's about the disparities that show up in terms of race economics and other dimensions of difference. We want to reduce those disparities, achievement gap, dropout rates, just differential referral rates for discipline. We want to reduce the negative, and also we want to increase the positive outcomes for all groups. So equity, we track it, we look at it, and in many ways the school reform movement, whether it's No Child Left Behind or Race to the Top or other efforts, have helped us focus on those issues, because those issues are the very issues that we measure. And it's important for us to look at the disparities and closing the gaps, which are not necessarily just achievement gaps. A lot of us refer to those much more as opportunity gaps, privilege gaps, social justice gaps. And if you look at the third concept on your handout, excellence. A key issue around excellence is that we keep the bar high in everything we do. We're not dumbing down our curriculum to focus on passing tests. We're looking at keeping the curriculum high for all our students and the expectations high for all our students. And we're honoring folks in their cultural connections. We want kids to maintain, grow deeper in their understanding of who they are as a person, who they are in their cultural context, who they are in their gender, sexual identity, their language, their background, their religion. So we deepen that focus on preservation of culture. And at the same time, we're looking at engaged citizenship, which I think is the key to excellence. A lot of folks around the country may say the top 100 high schools in America, or the best colleges to go to, or the best elementary school, are looking only at test scores and sometimes at graduation rates and college attendance. For me, excellence has much more to do with engaged citizenship. How are our students living in their lives related to the pluralism and the diversity they see around them? Are they capable of engaging with folks who don't look like, speak like, worship like them? Can they have that skill of cultural competence? Do they have the ability to critique political rhetoric when they get a little older, see through folks' attempts to manipulate them based on fears and difference. This is all the excellence agenda, which is a key piece of school reform. Should be. It's been too driven by test scores, and that's why on this definition of excellence we talk about excellence is not so much about compliance or test scores, it's about engaged citizenship and real critical thinking. In the language of 21st century school reform, we often talk about excellence in terms of having students college and career ready. And those are certainly important goals. I mean, we want our students to be able to be functional in the work world and have the opportunity to go on for further learning, higher education. That's a kind of a minimum level expectation we would like to see coming out of our high schools. But it's not sufficient. College and career ready is not sufficient education. It's actually missing, I think, a central point. And what I always do is add another C to that, which is college, career, and culture ready. College, career, and culture ready. Because I look at my own life, I came out of high school certainly college and career ready. I had a scholarship to an elite university on the East Coast. I came from Seattle. I had the college part ready. I think I was career ready. But I wasn't culture ready. I had no clue about the world I was going into. I'd been brought up in a white suburban community, isolated from most of the diversity issues we're going to be talking about in this workshop. So I definitely was not culture ready. I was not ready to understand the diverse nation and world I lived in, even though I was considered a smart kid. So we have to add that third C, college, career, culture ready. It means we're able to engage in this country, in this world, in a respectful way, having some degree of knowledge of our own ignorance and some degree of respect for people who are not like us.
Give it up for Gary Howard. All right. Well, Gary Howard would have been here, but apparently Gary Howard was too expensive, so we're here. I think the second option was a Gary Howard hologram that we were going to project it, but the technology department didn't like that. So Gary Howard on video, everybody. Let's give it up one more time. Gary Howard on video. My name is Wade Antonio Caldwell. I come from a state some of you might have heard of called Arizona. Anybody ever heard of this place? Place you don't want to be right now. That's for sure. So thank you for bringing me at this time of year. But I also know we're coming back at some other times of year that I'm also looking forward to, because we don't get much of that white stuff in Arizona. I'm looking forward to a little bit of that. But very happy to be part of a history, generational commitment to this work. We're very aware that in as much as I think we were kicking off the day with, I don't know, was anyone hearing the Eminem song? Like, this is the moment? Well, this is the moment, but also I think there's been so many moments that have generated the energy for this to happen. We're speaking with some of the students today, talking about a real long-term conversation and commitment around this. And we're so honored and humbled to be a part of it. And I also just wanted to mention, like, hearing that first statement opening today in both Spanish and English, I appreciate that so deeply. Yo soy mexicano, yo. Mi mamá es de Chihuahua, México. Y tengo mucho orgullo en esta. Y el español es un puente. Es un puente, no es un problema, es un puente. The Spanish is truly a bridge, it's not a problem. It's something that we need to think about, how languages can help us connect one another, how we can connect nations. It's about building diplomacy around, being able to understand each other. So thank you. And then, Kwame, I got all kinds of ideas from what you said. I think we do need to Kwame before we Maslow and Bloom. We do. I did. So thank you. And Tia, the only thing missing from your speech was, and I just want to announce, President 2020, I'm going for the presidency. That was the only thing missing, because you had all the good class one, could have kicked it off right here. But anyhow, thank you for inviting us. We're very happy to be here. This is my brother Benji that I get the privilege to travel around the country with. So everybody, this is Benji Howard, Gary's son, actually.
I didn't know I was going to get invited to fly all the way out here and sit on a bleacher and watch my dad say some stuff. as I was watching, I was like, God, this guy's kind of smart. It's good we're doing that.
Skips a generation. Not just kidding.
But Wade, it's good to be here with you too. I can't believe we're still getting along after all these years. You know,
So true.
It's a real honor, so thank you for the invitation, you know, to be here and be a part of this journey. I gotta say, like, I hope all of you know that there is kind of this relationship with this thing called deep equity and this thing called youth equity stewardship. I just have to say right off the bat that we hope, the deepest hopefulness we're bringing to this is that we're not coming in as some process or a thing you kind of have to do. We really feel like we want to be part of your community and support the wisdom that we know and the work that's already going on. This stuff isn't starting today or back in June, right? This work has been a long journey, and we're just invited in to be partners in that. One of the basic assumptions that we have in this work is that the wisdom is in the community. And the other one is that we got this. I know it's tough, because when we look at the data, we can say, in fact, you know, we've been doing 10 years of work and we're still seeing the same patterns in our data, but we got this. Look around the country, people are doing it. Like, we know how to do this. We know how to solve the problems that we have in our community, and we have the wisdom in the community to do it. So, you know, I hope we want to come in as humble as we can. And we're actually going to, we're going to kick off with a little music. Is that okay with you? I guess we've been criticized over the years a little bit about, like, maybe being a little groovy or hippy-dippy with bringing music into these conversations, but I really honestly feel like hell no. If you really want to see how change happens in America, listen to our music. And
Our specific music or just music in general?
Just, we're the only ones that are actually affecting change through music. So I don't know if anybody. No, I mean, as Americans, right, our music, hip-hop, the blues, folk music, rock music, we have been changing through music, you know, for all of our history. And music is the place where our beautiful cultural realities come together and mix. It's where we challenge the status quo. So, yeah, we're not the ones. That's up to you to decide, but we wanted to begin with a little music just to kind of bring, like you said, the heart and the mind together in these conversations. Because if we're just doing this as an intellectual exercise, I think that's actually why we still have the gaps in public education. Because we've been up here a lot and maybe not engaging at the heart level enough. So music is a way to do that. And we're actually going to do this as a little bit of a collaboration. So we want to hear your voices to help us bring the music in. And the metaphor is one that I know Phil and I share. I'm sorry, are you okay with first names? Okay. That's the way we were introduced. We share a passion for rivers. And I think you expressed a little bit, maybe some of our friends and colleagues get a little tired of us talking about how cool the river metaphor is. But for me, man, it's like, no, there's no end to the metaphors of rivers. I'm a river runner. I was a river runner before I was an educator. I'm still have been, and I'm still a guide on the Colorado River in Grand Canyon. Has anybody been down on that journey? Down that river, through that canyon? A few folks, yeah. This is the first year in 25 years I've not been down there. So I kind of miss it, but it's a beautiful place. It's your river that you all give to Arizona. Right?
Thank you.
Right? And we fight over this water, actually, right? We fight over this water to irrigate land. But this is the view from Nankoweap looking downstream. Nankoweap is an archaeological region where the Anasazi people were farming, 800 to 1,200 years ago. It's a classic view of Grand Canyon. It's one that you saw Dad up there talking with a fake image of Grand Canyon behind him. And it's more than a metaphor for us, because actually a lot of the ideas and the experiences and the conversations for us came from actually doing river trips on the Colorado River with educators from around the country and using it as a way to remember why we came to this profession, to think more deeply about what it is we want for the next generation, to connect across difference, because our river trips with educators were incredibly diverse, much more diverse than most of the river trips on the Colorado River are still mostly white folks going down and having that experience. And so we were also expanding the notion of who does this experience. And so it's deep in our thinking about this work, not only as a metaphor, but as a reality. Rivers have a lot to teach us. I think I learned more from rivers than I did in my 19 or 20 years of schooling. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to tap into my own femininity. I think rivers have a lot to teach us about masculinity and femininity. I've been drugged along the bottom with my head banged against the cobble and my fingers filling up with sediment, and then you come out of that experience and that first breath you have when you come up from a river is like the most beautiful breath you've ever had. It reminds you of the beauty that we're alive. And that beauty is kind of what we want to explore a little bit with this song. This is also Grand Canyon. Anybody know where this is? Yeah. You got it. Say it in the mic.
Lake Havasu?
Yeah. Pretty close. It's Havasu Creek. But you got it, right? Do you know what Havasu means? Does anybody know what Havasu means? The Havasu Pi people are the people of Havasu Canyon. Havasu Pi means people of the blue-green water, which makes sense, right? This is actually Havasu looking downstream, and you can see the greener water in the distance is the Colorado. So this is the confluence of Havasu Creek and the Colorado. Now I put this picture in here as a metaphor for what I would like my life to feel like. I would like my profession in education to feel like, I wish my classroom felt like this. Is anybody with me? Right? This time of year, we can maybe even expect that. We've been rejuvenated in summertime. Here's what I feel like my classroom feels like most of the time. Right? I feel that there's people out here resonating with that, right? This is also the Colorado River, and it's a different kind of beauty, right? I have two teenagers at home. My daughter's 14. She's going into high school this year. My son's going to be a senior in high school. And there's so much about my children that I love. They're beautiful young people. And as much as I would like to just enjoy our relationship and have it feel like this, they're teenagers. And it really feels more like that rapid, It feels more like that. I've been married for 20 years. I like it.
Don't go there, Benji. Just leave it. We're good. Keep the classroom.
What I'm getting at is, and what Wade and I want to share is that this is more like our profession. We're living in a complex environment that is changing all the time, and this river is muddy. It's got everything in it. All that sediment from all that rain is in our river. I mean, this is democracy when everybody thinks the same. Everybody believes the same. Everybody has the same political viewpoint. This is real democracy, right? This is public education when everything functions perfectly and every kid comes into our buildings prepared to be a learner and be successful. But we know that this is more the reality of the river that we're running. So we want to explore this kind of beauty a little bit and share a song that really kind of dives into the idea that complexity, beauty, fear, all these things can live inside. The idea that beauty is not just something pretty to look at, but we need to celebrate beauty, dynamic, complex beauty, to fortify ourselves to do our job, because we have to remember that we're beautiful human beings, we live on a beautiful planet, and we actually, as front office people, as grounds people, bus drivers, teachers, principals, we all have the most beautiful profession on the planet. To be in public education is amazing, but it's this kind of beauty. So we're going to explore that a little bit. I'll let Wade say that.
Yeah, I'd love to really tap into the idea, what I was hearing this morning, and also having conversation with students this morning about the value of relationships. And that we all know that relationships actually get deepened and strengthened when there's been some challenge, when we've gone through conflict. So in as much as You know, I see that blue-green water as maybe the potential. I'm not sure if I really even want that. Because on some levels, that might be just too superficial. And maybe the depth is kind of really going through tough times and seeing a beauty in struggle. And not to romanticize struggle, because we do need to eliminate ways in which people are being harmed and hurt. But we also want to just recognize that we're all human. And I think that's just the way we're always going to show up, perhaps forever. Now, we would like to offer this song in a conversation format to open it up. And the theme of this song is about beauty. The song was actually written by Benji, and it was a moment where he was out on a lake with his 2 children, and they were fishing. And he dropped the line in the water, and as the line dropped in, you could see the ripples kind of moving out from around him. And as they looked down on those ripples, Benji could see the reflection of he and his children, as well as the snow-capped peaks behind him. And in a moment of just profound beauty, there was also this moment that he's expressed to me about just being petrified and being overwhelmed at just the dimension of life. Maybe being so small in this profound place. And I added to this song. So the way we collaborate, either I might start a song, he builds on it, or he'll write a song and I'll do the same. But I was inspired by actually growing up in Arizona and not actually even visiting nor going down the Grand Canyon until I was in my 40s. So it took me 40 years being from Arizona to even get to the Grand Canyon. And it was something that I didn't even realize I was missing. It connected me just to the earth. It connected me to my ancestors from different parts of the world. It just reminded me of just time. And there's another piece of this song that also speaks to our theme. We have a lot of themes around water, and we also just want to acknowledge that there's so much movement around the world around protecting water. And I know we talked about fighting over water, but so much of that fighting is, I think, rooted in protection and knowing that water is going to be, continue to be one of our major social issues of our times. So with all that, I would like to ask maybe a few people who would be open to sharing some aspect of beauty that you've experienced that kind of roots you to your sense of purpose in this work. So it could be something that maybe happened, experienced with the environment. It could be a relationship, sense of beauty. But I'm wondering if there's anybody here, and we could take the mic all the way back to the far corner, wherever it needs to go, but 2 or 3 people that would just be open to sharing some moment of kind of profound beauty that you would be open to sharing with our community today. And I know we have a big group here, but we're all just single individuals hearing one another, right? So I hope this can still feel intimate. Would anybody be open to just sharing your experience of beauty and how that's maybe filling your purpose of kind of stepping into a new year in this work? Would anybody be open to that? All right, thank you for kicking us off. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I know a lot of you. I think the beauty that I first experienced was the first moment after my children were born. Separately, 5 years apart, of course, but it was the first moment they looked up at me and smiled. And it was the connection we had right then and there. So, that's it.
How old are your kids?
One is going to be 32 next month, and she's getting married in November. And then I have my son who's going to be 37 in November as well.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, still got those babies. Yep. All right, anybody else? How about just from this side over here? Anyone on this side of the audience that would be open to share a moment of beauty? Benji's getting, okay. I'm coming to you all next. All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Bless up. The moment that I had that I think was beautiful was this summer after one of my friends died, and he went to the school with me, and we all got together as a class and we just shared memories with each other and we gave each other hugs. And I'm talking about the people that bullied each other and the people that said they didn't like each other. We got together just to say that we loved Taylor, and we were very, very bittersweetly happy with each other's. So yeah, that's mine.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And particularly, I think, bringing in the idea of bullying as one of those things that I think we've all had experiences with. I think we're all looking for ways in which we can take care of one another better. And it's never too late to bridge those relations. Anybody here open to sharing an experience of beauty? You'll do it? Oh, I love it. Okay. Can we pass the mic?
So I was in Egypt scuba diving in the Red Sea about 15 years ago. We did 3 dives per day. And the crew was Egyptian. And we'd stop in the middle of the day for afternoon prayers and do nothing. And I asked them, I said, can I pray with you? And they let me. So we did. And for the next 7 days, we became friends. And at the end of that trip, I was by myself. At the end of that trip, they called me their Muslim brother, and they said, "You look like me, and we look like each other." And then I gave them some shirts that were used, and they understood exactly the point. And that was a big, beautiful realization.
Yeah, thank you. So
Thank you.
I hope you can feel at least a little bit what's going on here, which is that, like what you brought up around tragedy tends to bring community together, right? It's a reality, and sometimes we lose that over time. So a lot of equity work is about how do we create this community at a heart and head level without having to have a tragedy, right? To come together and really hear each other's voices. I just learned something from you. I think I would like to learn how to pace my speaking more like you. Like, beautiful. I was hanging on every word. Like, did you learn that, or is that just natural? Yeah. Pretty cool. Thank you for, I know that's kind of a crazy thing to kick off with. You don't know us that well, and we're like, tell us a profound experience you've had in this life. So thank you for helping us to make that connection. All right, I know we did a lot of leading, so y'all came with the song? Okay, let's do it.
All right. This song is called Out on the Water. I seen a fire lit up straight to the sky that was ignited by a call and reply, singing water is life, but in Lakota shouted, many rejoining. I saw so many families all standing there with destinies closely shared. The elders said, be prepared, there's more to witness and to bear. Prophecies have revealed the time to protect and shield, but go deeper with a vision from my heart, because here we are on the shell of Turtle Island. Every cell and every island, every life is a relative one. Here to be the momentum, to see the pendulum swing like the sun to the west. You know there's no rest for the weary, like this hummingbird to the left. Yeah. Out on the water, with a line and stone. Snow-covered bridges, hit on my head, I know I'm all alone. Yeah, fishing for heaven, make a man shiver his bones. Hey, 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 hey! Every time looking for peace of mind, I tried to cast a line in the pools I couldn't find, leading trails to the source. I was staying the course of the seeker, but I could see so many lives in my hand, just trying to understand, not as woman or man, but elder stones made of sand. Reeds converged to blues, became so clear what to do, just sink deeper and deeper. Where I was, cause there I was on that high take, I'm running on that high take, I'm running on a boat under the moon and the sun, just floating the currents and rapids, mapping the sweet silver thread with my head, till my soul took hold of the rudder. We asked permission instead. Out on the water with a hook, a line, and a stone. Snow-covered bridges, head over my head, I know I'm all alone. Fishing for heaven, make a man shiver his bones. Oh, make a man, make a man shiver his bones. Oh, make a man, make a man shiver his bones.
Thanks for letting us share a song with you. Wade and I are the co-architects, I guess, of the Youth Equity Stewardship Program, which we're really excited to share with with high school students from Eagle County. Actually, we're super excited. We have some here. We've already met some of the students, and that just made us that much more excited to be a part of your journey. And we're going to really hear from them here in a minute. And we want to set up a conversation. Again, this idea of beauty not as something pretty to look at, but something that fortifies ourselves and reminds ourselves of the beauty of our profession, the beauty of the families and the diversity that comes into our buildings, the children, the beauty of ourselves, the beauty of the earth that we live on, and the beauty of the future if we do our jobs right. Right? We fortify ourselves because we have to deal with the hard truths as well, which is, if we're going back to the data, I've worked a lot in Seattle public schools. Seattle public schools has put tens of millions of dollars into equity and diversity work over the last 2 decades. And guess what? It's worse today than it was 20 years ago. So we have some real serious questions that we have to wrestle with, right, in our profession. And how are we shifting our practice? How are we shifting the way we're thinking about this work so that it actually has results? Because, if we're looking at the disparities, this is what we're usually talking about, right? Sometimes people ask the question, why do you call this work deep equity? And it's usually kind of like deep, like, is it really that deep? Not deep as in, it's really, we're talking about, one of the things that we're looking at is that if we're just focusing on the data, if we're focusing on the gaps as the problem, we're not addressing the underlying problem that manifests as the gaps, right? So it's getting into a more human journey, working at the personal level, the personal reflection, looking at our biases, looking at history, translating that to the professional, translating the professional to the organizational, translating the organizational to hopefully produce societal results, right? But here's what we're looking at usually, and I know that this isn't a full list because it's like what we measure, but also the things that we don't measure. So much of this is about relationship and how it feels to be in school. But I don't know, is anybody familiar with the Annie E. Casey Foundation? Do you go there to get, it's an amazing, exhaustive look at what education looks like in America. It's really looking at the health of a child. And the Annie E. Casey Foundation doesn't just look at educational outcomes like test scores, graduation rates, AP enrollment, things like that, discipline referrals. They look at a more holistic picture of the health of educational health of a child. There's 12 points, right, Wade? 12 sort of indicators, including economic indicators, because we know now that poverty itself is a trauma that's experienced every day. So that factors into a student's ability to learn in school. Out of those 12 factors, each one is 100 points. And so a perfect score for a student would be 1,200. And this is what, I'm going to offer you up national data and then look at Colorado so that we can kind of get a picture of where we are when we're having these conversations. I've looked at your data too. The first thing I have to say is, I mean, we're working in schools all across the country. You're doing some amazing work here in Eagle County. You know, I'm really excited to learn more. So, because one of the cool parts of our job is we can share best practices from one district to another. So again, out of 1,200, Asian Pacific Islander 783, 713 for white students. Latinos are 429, American Indian 413, African American 369. To me, the profound aspect of the KCE, the Annie B. Casey Foundation findings, is the distance between where that red line is. You know, for me, it's like it really creates a very real vision on what's going on in America. And again, these aren't just specific educational outcomes. This is the overall educational health of a child. And so this is looking across from high to low, from state to state, right? So you have the highest state for Asian and Pacific Islanders, as well as something's going on in New Jersey for white folks. We're doing a really good job with those folks in New Jersey. And then the lowest, and then there's the national average. So the national average is what I just showed you. Just take a minute to look at this. Maybe talk to a partner. If there's any, what do you notice when you kind of look at these numbers on this screen? Is there anything that jumps out at you in your mind? You can just talk to somebody who's next to you. What do you see? What do you notice? Maybe something is disturbing you. Just take a moment to do that.
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, and so I'm wondering, like, is there an economic thing in New Jersey?
So, I'm just noticing that I got to sit down right here for a second. I hate to tell you, all these bleacher people up there, I see some people resting your bottom sides. Go for it, yeah, because I just realized these ones down here have hats on. It's like an equity issue. Yeah. I shouldn't even brought that up. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's only the front row. There's one right here if anybody wants it. Yeah. I'm not going to go too far out, but anybody want to just share maybe something that you heard, something that you noticed from this image? Anything stand out? Yeah.
We were wondering why the Asian and Pacific Islanders were grouped together. That was something that stood out to us.
I have a lot of Pacific Islander friends that have a problem with that. They don't identify as Asian. So our U.S. Census data organizes like this, but it by no means really represents who we are, right? For one, there's not enough on here. There's not enough of us on this list, but basically we tend to organize data in the same pattern that the U.S. Census does, right? Yeah.
The minority groups fall below the national average. For like their highest achieving is below the national average for the white group.
Yeah. The lowest is West Virginia for white. Oh, I see. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so you notice that the average for whites is higher than the highest for people of color. And the lowest for whites is still higher than the average for African American and Latinos, right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Sorry. I think what's really important about the report and the rankings is like knowing the indicators. So birth rate is one of the indicators, and so I'm thinking if some groups are having the lowest birth rate, like are we predicting from the day you're born all these other factors? And I know the healthcare and percent of mothers that die in childbirth is very disproportionate. So I just wonder if that one thing affects every other indicator.
Yeah, you kind of point to something that I think for us as educators is a hard truth. Like, how much of these indicators are things that we can do something about, and how many aren't?
Well, as educators, we can't necessarily, but if this entire room believes that that's not okay, the healthcare system needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So.
For each of the groups, I noticed there's huge disparity between different states, so it can be done differently. So being identified as any one of these groups doesn't necessarily mean one outcome, that it can be good or bad depending on where you live or what kind of system you live in.
So the Sunshine Coast where I live had, in the low 41, 42% graduation rate for Native American students in British Columbia. In 10 years of doing really cultural empowerment and return to traditions, they're graduating, in some of their schools are graduating 100% of their students. It's like, again, we can do this. The data actually shows that we can do it. Tucson, Arizona, where Wade's from, flip the script on achievement for Hispanic Chicano students. It can be done. I'm going to just give you just a picture of Colorado so you can kind of see the negative or plus is just whether or not your state is below or above the national average. think in general, Eagle County is pretty much elevated on all fronts from this. Am I correct in that? For the most part, yeah. You know, I don't have them off the top of my head, but we'll pull them up. I think that having a list up here would be a really good idea. I think I'll do that next time. You know, so you can actually see what your birth rate, income, level of income, two-parent household. It also has educational components, you know, around like school, where you go to school. Can you think of some more that are on there? That's like 5.
Is it mother's education?
Yeah, level of education of the parents. But yeah, I think access to pre-K might be one of them. I can't remember. So this is your state. And we really want to just kind of open this up as a way to enter into a conversation, a short conversation for you, you know, here at the beginning of the school year, around urgency. And I'm just going to, this is for me on a personal level. I grew up, I had no sense of urgency around this. As a white kid, growing up in a mostly all-white town, so I'm a white, male, heterosexual person that grew up in rural America. I don't know if that makes me more white or less white, but I'm a country boy, right? And even though I grew up in a family that was having conversations about equity and social justice, it wasn't really real for me because it wasn't my reality. Like everyone I went to school with, pretty for the most part, looked like me. So there was no sense of urgency for me around this conversation we're having here this morning. I actually thought diversity and inclusion and all that stuff was just about being nicer to people. That was my mind frame growing up. But, you know, and this is kind of an image that reminds me of the culture of my community. So I come from a logging community, Darrington. Has anybody ever been to Darrington, Washington? Nobody. Yep, that's where I come from. Exactly. The only thing that Darrington is famous for is they got a big old blue. You've been there. Did you go to the Bluegrass Festival or the rodeo?
You had to have been to either one of those.
Otherwise, there's no reason to go there. It's pretty, yeah. It's you know right in the heart of the Cascades. I grew up on the Stillaguamish River. It's a beautiful place, a place where family values are really important. Faith is important. It's the kind of place where when your deck falls down, there's 10 people that show up on Sunday to help you fix it. People bring food to each other's house, you know, and there's a work ethic where I come from, and I feel proud of that. But it wasn't until I was in high school that I started to get a little bit of a shift in my consciousness, because that was the time when the fishing wars were happening in Washington State, and basically the tribes were trying to get back their treaty rights around fishing. And the commercial fishing industry felt like that was a threat because the tribes were going to be able to use nets and the commercial white fishermen couldn't. And that's when you started to see pickup trucks around in my town with a bumper sticker that said, "Save a fish, kill an Indian." And something burned a little hole in my brain that there were people in my community that were not living the same American experience as I was. Right? And that little hole is still burning. It's just getting bigger. That my worldview, my perspective, my way of thinking, my normal way of being, my sense of my normality, isn't everybody's experience. Because I grew up in a beautiful place, but there were people that were very much not heard from in my community. It's a tough place to be a black kid. There was one black kid in my graduating class. It was a very tough place to be a gay kid. And obviously pretty tough for our really high poverty with the Stillaguamish and Sauk tribe. Tribal realities is tough where I come from. So in that little hole burning in my brain, an urgency started to grow around, you know, this work and these conversations.
All right, you've heard of Martin Luther King Jr.? Anyone heard of that name? Yeah, it's pretty familiar. What was his speech?
I have a dream.
I have a dream. And that's beautiful, and that's also super problematic, because he said a lot of other things that were really critical to moving forward. And this quote here, I'm wondering if someone else, would anybody be willing to conjure the spirit of Martin Luther King and speak this quote? Who would be willing to read this? Anybody here in the soft seats, in the soft plush areas? We get somebody to speak to this?
We have come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
And this idea of incrementalism or gradualism, this kind of slow drip, drop, approach where, yes, we can pat ourselves on the back when we show our numbers shifting, but as you're talking about low birth weight, we can't wait. It needs to be now. We don't have till Monday. We really absolutely, I think, need to kind of consider the fierce urgency of now generally, but I also think what we're hoping is this work is going to constantly remind us of anchoring ourselves in our own fierce urgencies of now. And that is why I think it's so beautiful, and I'm so thankful for you all that you found it important to bring in students to speak to that today. And what I would love to do, I would love to invite some of those students to step into this spot today and speak. And I tell you what, we've got a rock star way of doing this, so we're going to bring you up one at a time. But we're going to let's honor each and every one of these wonderful students that have taken it upon themselves to prepare, but also just speak from the heart today around their fierce urgency of now. And Benji, I believe he's probably going to go grab a pronunciation over there, so let's hit this. We're going to get this right. And we do have our DJ in the back. Give it up for DJ Juan in the back. He's got some music lined up. He's going to bring them up. Each one of them with a special song. Who's our first student?
I don't know if you all are even ready for this, but we got Harry Garcia from Eagle Valley.
Give it up for Harry Garcia. Come on, hit that, Harry.
Harry's really into speech and debate. So he's going to bring some of his wisdom and his skills to this conversation about urgency. But Harry's not the only one. I don't know if you're ready for Ann, but Ann Abel is in the house.
Get over
She's coming from CMC.
All right. I guess we're doing elbows all the way around.
I want you to know something about Ann. She's at CMC. She's studying to be a teacher. She wants to come back to Eagle County. Right? All right. We got an educator's kid in the house. Margot Stabney from Eagle Valley is right here.
Yeah, Margot.
Okay. Margot's a dancer.
Yes, she is.
What kind of dance, Margot? Are you
what is that?
Ballet or anything? Hip hop? Everything? You're just a dancer. Yeah, beautiful. All right. Last but not least, we got Daniela Rubio from Eagle Valley. Come on,
Yes. Little Santana for you right there. Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Juan.
That's the elbow thing. Is that like an eagle thing?
So, I just want you to also, guess what? Daniela also wants to be a teacher and come back to Eagle County to be a teacher. Pretty awesome.
So one of the questions we were talking about and thinking about as a group, again, is this question of why is this work urgent, as broad of a term as that is? And for me, this work is urgent because if we aren't working to create the same learning atmosphere, resources, and opportunities for half the population of our district, then why are you guys doing what you're doing? Because it's about everyone, and it's about all of us included in this. And that means understanding where everyone is coming from and where you are coming from
journey of that. And I think it's urgent and requires each and every one of you, because this kind of work can only move forward when everyone reflects on how they benefit from a system setup, how I benefit from a system setup, and how we can each be a part of that growth moving forward. Because it benefits everyone. Everyone feels freer, everyone grows from that, and it's really important to be part of that. And it requires compassion, not just sympathy, and a want to understand what we do not know about others, and a want to work as a group together. And it's the growth of all of us, and I've grown up believing change was just out of reach. But I think one of the things, as I've worked with all the students that I've gotten to know and all the teachers I've gotten to know, is that we are completely capable of this. And we're capable of something greater than what we have now. So.
So for me, it's a little bit more on a personal level, as someone who went to school here for my whole life and have cousins, brothers, sisters, you know, the whole rodeo. I have a bunch of people. But for me, this is urgent work because as a sister, as a relative, I want my people to be able to thrive in their classrooms and enjoy school as much as I do. I mean, I'm going to be a teacher, so as you can see, I love school. And also, as a future educator, I want my students to feel safe and supported, and to have a teacher who will always have their back no matter what, unless it's really crazy, then no. And I also want you guys to feel supported and accomplished, because change is difficult. I understand a lot of you guys are gonna have a hard time, but when it's over and when it's, you know, it's never done, but when you accomplish it, it'll be so good. It'll feel so great to be like, I did that, sis, I did that. And, you know, we have to work together, because together we can achieve greatness, and separate we just kind of doom ourselves to not being able to accomplish what we set our mind to. So thank you, and I hope that in this long journey we can work together and really make an impact.
So, sorry. Okay, so why is equity urgent? Well, first of all, equity means treating every student the same. Equity means making sure every student has the support they need to be successful, and it's just that simple, and that's why it's so urgent. So every single student in the district feels successful, and I think that's our goal here. That's why I want to go into education, specifically early childhood education. So that's why it's so urgent, to make sure that every student in this district feels and is successful.
No, I feel like equity needs to be, it's a term that needs to be maintained. See, we use it a lot, and it gets dull. The only way to keep it sharp is through testimony, stories of you know, all the people here. What's most important is you need to have your own definition of equity. Like, how has equity affected you? I personally didn't know what equity was. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why there was an achievement gap. As cliche as it was, I found the answer within me. I found out that my peers and I, we have a certain privilege. I have the privilege to live for the future. Many of my classmates don't. Many of my classmates are forced to live in the present. They have to fill in for an adult, whether it's work that is paid or work that is, you know, taking care of a sibling, taking care of the house, or whatever kind of work it is. They are forced to live in the present. And with our political turmoil right now, some of them don't know if they're going to be here the next day. So they're living day by day. Now, there is a way to fix this. It is urgent that we commit to a system that reinforces equity. See, these kids aren't going home and thinking about equity. They're thinking about, what am I going to give my little sibling? How am I going to make money? If we reinforce it, you know, they're going to say, well, this equity stuff sounds kind of important, Doug. Like, you know, it's important. But we can't stop there. It's not enough. You know, having educated students is not enough. And I know that's weird to say, but we need to find a way that these students take this information home. See, a lot of the parents think they don't have time to read the newsletters, they don't have time to watch the news, they don't have the time because they're living day by day. The only way they can get this information is through their kids, right? So, with a system that reinforces equity, these kids can go home and tell them, hey, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to maintain you in old age, but this is a retirement fund. Surprisingly enough, there's many adults that don't know what a retirement fund is. They could go talk about, here's where our money's coming from, here's where the money's going, here's where we can give ourselves a little bit of leverage. This is how they can live for the future. They can start taking the opportunities. See, we can provide all the opportunities in the world. But if these kids don't want to take it or don't have the ability to take it, there is no reason to give them the opportunities. So let's let kids live for the future.
All right, everybody. Just a wild idea, but how about Tia Harry 2020? You can work out the president, vice president, like you can work that out. But yeah, I think it's really valuable. I think everyone sharing their personal story. Thank you all so much for stepping into this space. You all want to do any background dancing to our final song today? Yeah, I know you do for sure. But, are you okay if we kick off with a final song, really kind of in celebration of this intergenerational partnership? Students. Okay, they're going to dance off to the side. Is what they decided. But we want to offer a song called Many Rivers. The spirit of this song really is about cultural competence. It's really about having the will and ability to connect authentically and effectively across difference. Because so often these differences can be our borders, they can be our barriers. We need to see these differences as opportunities to just be richer, to be more collectively intelligent through the diversity. We don't all need to be the same. In fact, that can be super plain. So this song here celebrates that. Many Rivers, Benji's song.
And I'll say this too, just with the power of youth voice in this work, we're finding, because we're doing case studies with our work across the country, the difference between districts who do this work and engage students in the conversation and don't is profound. We're seeing the furthest movement with regard to discipline referrals, AP enrollment, just overall survey data that comes back around like teacher-student relationship, way higher when you have high levels of engaged students. And in most of our districts, the Wade and I are working in, students are leading professional development in the second year of their work. And so we're gonna go down that track. So are you all ready to teach some teachers? You have it in you? Yeah. So, yeah, we're just gonna end with this song, and yeah, like Wade said, it's called Many Rivers.
And while we're waiting for the video here, let's give it up one more time for the students that offered their voices today. Thank you so much.
My papa was a preacher man with his brown eyes and his raised hands, and my mama sang the songs, yeah. And Papa told the people that it was all alright. My mama made them feel it, and then poor kids could sing them spirit songs, oh yeah. But at the end of my dirt road, I couldn't play with this kid, cause his mama and papa didn't believe in the same things as my mama and papa did. Abraham's mom, and I said, I know what you believe. You got every right to believe in it, but your 7-year-old son is a friend of mine, and I don't see the trouble, man. We get along just fine. She said, you don't believe in the same things as we believe, so there's nothing left for you to do here, boy, but leave. Yeah, leave. She sent me crying home to my mama, crying home to my mama, crying home to my mama, and my mama said to me, many, many rivers, and they all lead to the sea. Oh, yeah, many, many rivers, and they all lead to the sea. Since the days up in that long dirt road, I traveled around the world. I got sisters and brothers of all colors, oh yeah. And I've seen the good things the faithful people can do, yeah, for the land, for their fellow man, with their healing hearts and their healing hands, yeah. But I've seen them barbed wire fences keeping neighbors from neighborhoods, keeping kids from doing what they should, yeah. Hanging out, working it all out, oh yeah.
Y'all snap along with me, man.
Oh, Edward Said said nobody's right, nobody's wrong. Terry Tempest Williams said we need space in between us just to get along. I've been on the inside, the outside, the in between. I learned that nothing ever is exactly what it seems. I've seen scared, lonely people call themselves free, righteous and pious people pointing their fingers at me, make me go crying home to my mama, crying home to my mama, crying home to my mama. And my mama said to me, yeah, many, many rivers, and they all lead to the sea. Oh, yeah, many, many rivers, and they all lead to the sea.
All right, I got a very specific challenge for you, Mr. Qualcomm. You ready for this? You're a river runner. Name me some of the rivers around the world. Just give me a couple of these rivers that are maybe some of the rivers you've been on, and maybe some rivers that you would like to be take a trip down one day.
Been on the Colorado, through the Grand Canyon. Been on the Eagle for many days. Been on the Middle Fork of the Salmon.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to run some rivers in California. I'd like to run the Kern. I'd like to run the American. I'd like to run some of the rivers up in British Columbia. Here they got some beautiful rivers up there.
All right, let's do that together. Me too.
We're planning a trip down the Nile, just letting you know that's one of our rivers. But I tell you what, Benji, break down some of those rivers. We're going to do a little trip around the world. And this is where Benji kind of gets to break down his rapping skills. I'm going to need you to participate. Ready?
Well, there's the Colorado, the Rio Grande, the Blue River, and the Little Chelan, the Stillaways, the Tatsatee, the Skokomish, the Snohomish, the Pilchuck, the Rogue, and the Rhine, where they make the wine, the Virgin River in Utah, and on up to the Arkansas, the Hamahama, the Biobio, the Limpopo, the Ohio, the Congo, yeah, the Congo, the Yangtze, the Mackenzie, the Missouri, and the Mississippi, the Trinity, and the Yukon, the Columbia, and the Mekong, the red, the white, and the green, the rivers I've seen, the snake, the deer, and the bear, and the rivers running everywhere, the river of the moon, the river of the sun, it don't really matter much which one, no, because there's that beautiful Eagle River too, but it's hard to rhyme anything with Eagle River.
A legal river.
Cause there's a river of the Christians, a river for the Jews, a river for the Muslims and the Buddhists and the Hindus, a river for you, a river for me, many, many rivers, and they all lead to the... That's what I'm talking about. Let's do this together. I'll give you the note. See. Yeah.